し来る年ポテトの夢も黄金色と熱々のマックフライポテトで良いお年を。
Crunchy roasted peanuts. Just what you need to get going.
Showtime!
Baby Ruth from Nestle. This baby gets you going.
Fox invites you to go beyond the bounds of darkness into the heart of...
As the dust settles, I think we have all learned that the real Acolyte is the friends we made along the way.
Well, what a strange world we live in. We're back again after a small break, I suppose. 1 week off to collect our thoughts and become humans again. We're here once again for the Distracted Gamers podcast. I'm sure all of you that were sitting on pins and needles wondering our takes on latest news for the last week are really upset that we weren't there.
We let them down.
I'd let you down. All chance of you. That being said, we do have, like every week, an absurd amount of things to talk about. But before we get into that,
there's so much garbage.
All for chance.
All for chance. This is the Chance podcast, everybody. We put it together for you,
He's a
buddy.
special boy.
He's a special boy. He's my little camper.
A little slugger.
A little slugger. Before we get into all of that, the Robin to my Batman, Jason, how's it going?
Hey, pretty good.
Or are you going to break away and try and do a Nightwing thing and be all bitter and go to Bloodhaven?
Yeah, I'm going to do that.
Oh.
Yeah, well, you suck when you start to change and go to Bloodhaven and stop being as interesting.
Yeah, well, it's really kind of dumb what they've been doing with DC and stuff right now. Apparently, they've given Dick Grayson powers, and he's become like god tier over at DC for some reason.
Of course he has. Do you have, by the way, a favorite Robin? Because mine was Tim Drake, but
Favorite
it is
Robin?
no longer. Now that they've changed his sexuality strangely over how many decades?
Yeah, so I would have said the same thing. His Red Robin era I really liked. But yeah. It didn't make sense, the changes that they've made with him, because it just watered down the character and made it not as. It's like every time they need to do anything, it's like, okay, we've got to retcon everything. We got to.
Well, it's just a sign of bad writing.
Like, no.
They don't make new characters. They change other characters to modify them and to aligning with whatever politics or ideology is popular at the time. To just as a slight side, Jason Todd was done dirty by the fans. You people suck.
He was. He really was.
And Jason Todd was actually pretty decent in, I think it was Cataclysm, in that run of Batman. So you people are horrible.
I do kind of like his Red Hood persona now.
Well, he should have stayed dead. Characters don't stay dead.
Well, yeah,
he had
he
an emotional effect on Batman, and now it cheapens it by him being back for some strange reason. He should have stayed dead. I'm just that person. There should be permanence.
That is one of the things that, like you said, it cheapens comics. When we have a death, the death needs to mean something. We can't just have like Captain America die and then come back a few issues later. It's like, no, you really need to think these things through. We can't have Superman die and then come back to life. If you kill Superman, he needs to stay dead. And so you need to really, really think hard about these things before you kill any of your superheroes. Because if you kill them, they need to stay dead. We need to have, like you said, we need to have some permanence. Now, granted, there are some exceptions to that. It's kind of funny that Wade keeps coming back from the dead, but it's one of those things where if it makes sense for that character to keep coming back from the dead, yeah, whatever. But it's when you have a mainstream established character and you're saying, okay, we're going to kill this guy and bring him back in a couple episodes. That's where you're going wrong with the whole death thing.
I agree, but most of comics seem to run on a cycle of creating big hype news moment to get sales, and then moving into the next big hype news moment. So they kill characters to get a big sales bump, and then they bring them back because when that character's gone, they're not making money. And it's a cheap way of writing. It's a cheap way of writing. It's really poor.
Which cheapens comics. It cheapens death. It is
like a soap opera. It's precisely like a soap opera.
And now the big movies are doing the same thing.
Yeah, they're doing the exact same thing. In similar way, wrestling has had this problem where they write a storyline to get a big pop, but then they have nowhere to go because they've blown that.
Afterwards, yeah.
Right, yeah. It's like, we're going to have a match where you have to quit the WWE forever. Okay, well, he's just back next week. It doesn't mean anything.
Yeah. Like, if you have to have permanence in these things. And if you don't have permanence, there's no real stakes.
There's no real stakes. Anyway, Jason, what have you been up
to? So I've been reading a book called The Book of Unusual Knowledge. It's just a bunch of random like stuff. That's actually where I came across that article about the NAACP.
Oh yeah.
But I've also anime with their impossible names now. You know what I mean? I watched this one called.
I want it more stupid. What's the name of it?
I've somehow gotten stronger when I improved my farm-related skills.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
It's a fantasy. It's a fantasy anime. It's not isekai, but it has some of those same kind of tropes. So they have like their status screen and all that stuff. Well, the main character, he only wants to be a farmer. All he wants to do. And I thought it was going to be kind of one of those interesting kind of One Punch Man type, because one of the first things you see him do is there's this dragon flying around burning the forest, and he's like, oh, I'm going to leave it alone. It's not my problem. And then he realizes, oh crap, if the dragon gets out of control, I won't be able to sell my vegetables. And so he pulls out a carrot and he throws it at the dragon, and he throws it so hard the dragon explodes. And so a lot of the first episodes are like played for this comic effect where he's like, dude, I'm just a farmer. And monsters come up and he takes out a hoe and he hits the ground so hard it causes an earthquake.
There was reminds me of an anime where this girl lived like 100 years in one location killing slimes and selling it to the point where she became the most powerful person in the world because she just killed slimes forever and became like the doom of the slimes, where they consider her like their Satan or whatever. Come to kill them all.
Problem with this one is they went away from that comedic aspect and started taking themselves too seriously. That, and there was a little bit of an imagination problem. They had the evil god, and that was his name. He was the evil god. It wasn't like Astaroth or Belphegor or anything like that. He was the evil god, and his counterpart was the good god. And it's like, oh my gosh. But once it started taking itself too seriously, then it stopped being entertaining, unfortunately.
Sweet. Is that all you got to report?
Well, On a more mundane note, the deck on the back of my house is falling apart. We are rebuilding it, and this is how bad it was. There were like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I want to say 8 support posts, and when we were taking the boards off the top, all but 2 of the support posts just snapped off.
So most
There's
of the
only
weight was
2 that
being
are left
carried.
standing.
Most of the weight was
Yeah.
being carried by a couple, and you removed the vital posts, so to speak.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really bad.
And we have Ross, the Punisher to my Daredevil. How's it going, Ross?
Yeah, that's me. Going good.
Trying to get me to murder people all the time, and I ain't gonna do it.
No. Look, maybe, but
let's be honest. It would probably be me doing the instigating, but anyway. No, do it.
It's a really different version of Daredevil. Nonchalant. Just good week. Been playing Gears, obviously, you and I, and we will hopefully have something about that in a few weeks. Also watched a movie called Last Shift, which I've seen years ago and wanted to rewatch. So my girlfriend and I rewatched it, and it's pretty all right. It's a good little horror movie that takes place on like 2 sets. Pretty good.
What one is that? What one is that?
So it's Last Shift is about this like rookie cop. It's her first night on the job, and she has to just basically sit in the now retired police station. It's the last night that police station's going to ever exist, and the only reason it is still there is because the hazmat crew hasn't come and picked up the hazmat evidence.
Oh.
And her dad was a cop, and basically it turns out the police station's haunted.
Oh,
because there was a weird Manson cult that had devil worshippings.
Oh.
And they when they got brought in, they got killed. They killed themselves, and now that station's haunted as hell. And so they're dealing with this spoopy situation.
The spoopies.
Yeah. It's good. It's a good movie. They remade it last year, which is bizarre. But that's, I'll probably watch that one at some point and see if it's better. But
that's an interesting recommendation, at least.
Yeah. It's so if you want a pretty all right, the ending kind of both is good and bad. But if you want a good horror movie, you should definitely give it a watch. It's just I think it's an hour and a half. I mean, it's just a nice little movie. It's pretty all right. Probably made for like $2 million if I had to guess. It is very cheap.
Sweet. Oh, and also this person.
That thing.
Oh, God.
Oh, look, Silver Vow's upon us. Silver Vow, the Mixelplix to my Superman. How's it going? Yeah, well, Jason might understand.
Get her to say if you get her to say her name backwards, does she disappear?
She might. She's just mostly
say my name 3 times and I'll attack Japan.
Well, just kind of shows up out of nowhere and is annoying, and like you can't get rid of him. It's a thing. All
you gotta have me.
I have to. We're required by law to get diversity onto this podcast, and that's why you're here.
Exactly.
So, Silver, how's it been going?
Fun getting rid of me.
I know.
Good. I watched stuff.
Oh, good.
Some of which I think Brett and Ross already know about. That I talked about during our week of not podcasting. Some anime.
Uh-huh.
The Uramichi-san.
It's a funny show.
A little bit of Faraway Paladin. Yeah.
Faraway Paladin's good.
And Apothecary Diaries. I like that one.
Uh-huh.
Some non-anime. I watched Twisters.
Oh, yeah. How'd you like it?
I liked it, but I couldn't get past the... You're so right. It's like, oh, here comes the millennial.
Well, it seemed like a
come
weird...
on, man.
Well, it seemed like a weird gripe, but the girl seemed like she was 12 years old after being apparently a Twister chasing veteran and then going off to teach at a college. And she seems like she just got out of high school.
I know, like, you could see, like, her hair is colored, but it doesn't change in between scenes, so it's like, you haven't aged at all. It's supposed to be forever ago when you're in college, and now you're a teacher.
And we got the cliche YouTuber Twister man.
Yeah, the YouTuber thing of like, come on, guys, I got my T-shirts.
Whoa.
And
make some money.
I'm gonna make some money. And I like the original Twister, but I didn't hate Twisters. I thought it was fun. It's not amazing, but it was all right. It was fun.
Yeah, good enough.
Good enough.
And rewatched Beetlejuice just for the second one coming out.
Beetlejuice is a good movie.
Yeah, so hopefully
that is a good
hopefully
movie.
we won't be disappointed. I'm scared. I love Beetlejuice.
Beetlejuice is a really good movie.
That's a valid apprehension.
Oh, don't worry.
You
will be.
Shake your body, love. Harry Belafonte.
No, it's too accurate. We'll get
American
copyright
hero.
claimed.
Harry Belafonte is an American hero, and I think he's from Puerto Rico. I don't know.
From Puerto Rico?
Somewhere.
No,
he is from somewhere. That's right, Jason. Good call.
I was trying to in that area.
From a place.
I've seen a few movies. I'm going to give you really quick reviews so that we don't drag this out too long. I saw The Instigators.
He's born in New York.
Good. There are a lot of Puerto Ricans in New York. Is he Jamaican?
Yeah, his parents are
awesome. He's great, though. Anyway, I've seen a bunch of movies really quickly. I saw The Instigators. I thought it was good. The story's not that great, but I thought it was fairly well written and really well acted. It's on Apple Plus. It's got Casey Affleck and Matt Damon in it. Matt Damon plays like a simpleton fella. Not stupid, but very simple, unfazed, not very clever. And then they go to rob a place. It's this whole story. I liked it. I would recommend it. I started watching Bad Monkey, which is still airing on Apple Plus. Kind of a crime drama. So far, so good. It has Vince Vaughn in it. He basically plays Vince Vaughn in a crime show. I saw Furiosa. It sucks. Just so everybody knows, Furiosa sucks. It compared to I loved, even though I have problems with, I loved Fury Road. Furiosa feels like it was filmed by a B team for a B movie setting. It felt cheap by comparison.
So, while back, I read an article that declared that Furiosa didn't do very well, but that he was the author of the article was convinced that it would become a cult classic later.
No.
What's your take?
No. It's too poorly filmed. It felt like it was a B movie. Honestly, it didn't. Whereas the first one felt so real because there were so realistic stunts and whatnot. Furiosa felt like you could see a lot of green screen. And it was just like, ew. And I could tell there were some real stunts in it, but it's not a good movie. It's very cheap. Furiosa's not an interesting character. They spent a half hour in her childhood, which is not very interesting. The only interesting part is sort of a middle section where she's with this guy named Praetorian Jim, who is like the pseudo Mad Max. And they even call it Furiosa, a Mad Max tale or something, just so they could put Mad Max in the title so people know what it is, because people wouldn't see it without Mad Max in it, and apparently they didn't.
No, they wouldn't.
But I can't even recommend it because it mostly sucks. It's a bad movie. If you want any more detail, I guess I could at some point. It's not good. Freaking watch The Beekeeper was Jason Statham. Beekeeper's fun.
Oh,
It's a fun action movie.
I saw that. Like
Yeah, it's
John
good.
Wick, but bees.
Yes, John Wick, but bees. Not the bees.
But Jason Statham.
But Jason Statham. I had fun with it. Beekeeper's like a John Wick sort of thing. I'm sure I've seen... I watched a few anime. There's some silly stuff in there. Nothing stands out at the moment that I would recommend. Oni-san, that one was fun that Silver was talking about. That being said, we do have... Ross, are you sending me Instagram messages?
Yeah. Yep, I sure am. Found some goodness.
All right. Well, just, I want your undivided Ross attention.
I'm sorry. I had something I had to look at on there. I'm sorry.
We're going to talk about this later with your mother.
Well, she's asleep, so I don't know what to tell you.
I don't know what to tell you. She has bedtime. She gets home, sleeps a bit early.
Well, I mean, she's old, so,
Yeah. Well, so inevitably, this is going to be the conversation this week. Everybody has been talking about this news, and whenever we get a hold of news, it's been talked to death, right? And that's sort of the problem with this podcast is it's late at night on Saturday, and all of the news has already happened, and everybody's already filtered through it, and everybody's already heard the opinions they want to hear about what's happened that week. So we end up being a sort of redundancy. So I thought it would be interesting to address the overall situation for somebody who isn't aware of what's going on, and then perhaps talk about it in a way that most people haven't. So we can get a little bit of a different take on this. To begin, if you're in the nerd sphere, you're aware. But if you're unaware, there was a show called The Acolyte, which we've talked about a lot, but we haven't reviewed. And I'm particularly pointing this out because we haven't reviewed it because we don't have an opinion on the show itself. What we have an opinion on is the drama around the show itself. Because I am not telling you whether or not it's a good show. I don't know that. I've seen a couple episodes. I didn't like it. But I can't give you a review because I haven't seen the whole show. What I am telling you is a lot of people didn't like it, and there was enough dislike of the show to end up creating this situation we're in. Anyway, we had the Star Wars show called The Acolyte that they spent $180 million on. Let's remind you, it was a $180 million show. And whenever Disney puts out a show, they always overspend on it. I mean, that's the price of a movie, like a big feature-length
Seriously.
Movie. Yeah.
And it stars Amanda Stenberg, written, directed by Leslie Headland. Amanda Stenberg plays two characters, which you don't know, I guess, spoilers here.
Spoilers for the old and now canceled show.
Yeah, spoilers for the old and now canceled show. She plays twins who get separated and then meet up again later. It's a lot of the criticism is her acting isn't very good, so she plays poorly two people who are the same person. Anyway, the initial release got a lot of pushback because people didn't like it. It wasn't well written. The acting was poor. The directing was poor, and they did a lot of changes to the lore, changes to Star Wars lore that people weren't happy with. Now, these are the crowd that the harder core nerds that weren't going to super be into it. There were a lot of people that were defending it. Apparently not enough to keep the show in. And I know a lot of people are going to come out of the woodwork and be like, oh, I loved it. A lot of people love this show. I mean, you're a vocal support group, but if you all actually loved the show would have stuck around. But this is, I'm going to set that conversation aside for the minute because we're going to talk about sort of the real conflict between the two. But let's address the overall Acolyte stuff really quickly. So the Acolyte show came out. Go ahead.
I just want to say real quick that the people who are vocal about the show, I don't know that there's enough of them that even if I don't know for a fact that these people actually watch the show or they just support it. But regardless, I don't think there's enough of those people that even if they had watched it, that it would have saved the show.
Well,
I
fair
just
enough.
don't think
And
there's that
once
many
again,
people.
let's set that aside for the moment. Anyway, the Acolyte came out as a Star Wars show. It gets canceled. Now, superficially, that's somewhat surprising. Usually Disney doesn't cancel a thing. Usually they come out with a show and they're like, we're working on the next one, and then it just kind of fades into obscurity and we never hear about it ever again. They usually don't just come out and say, we are no longer ever going to make this show. You just think maybe we might get a season 2. Like, they haven't flat out canceled Miss Marvel. They haven't flat out canceled a second She-Hulk. They haven't flat out canceled Hawkeye. They haven't flat out canceled Moon Knight. Like, they don't just say that. This one, they flat out said no season 2, which is different.
Yeah,
they usually don't do this sort of thing. They usually don't just flat out say we're not making one. And there could be a couple of reasons for this. It performed poorly enough, and there was enough negative damage to the brand, perhaps, that they wanted to flat out go, hey, this was a mistake and it is not coming back, just so that they don't drag people through speculation and they don't keep the drama going. That could perhaps be a reason.
It could be.
That they've announced a cancellation. There are a lot of possibilities. But the show's been canceled. It didn't perform well. It wasn't rated well in general. Some may have liked it. But it ended up being canceled and will not return for a season 2, even though Leslie Headland dropped a lot of open air stuff for the end of it, for the hopes of it continuing on, but it's not continuing on. I'm not going to dwell on this article. It sort of generally talks about the cancellation. But here's the problem. The show was a political firestorm from the very beginning, which is something we talked about, and if you care to listen to us banter about it, mainly because it felt very much like a DEI political sort of forced diversity into something to try and appease people who are very ideologically minded when it comes to diversity. So it's like, well, we're going to make a show with a strong female black protagonist, and then most of the people in the show, the strong people, are going to be diverse and black. And
well, I want to say, too, a lot of that, doesn't that, I mean, as I remember it, granted it's been, a month or two.
Sure.
A lot of that came from the showrunner herself and the actors and whoever in various interviews and stuff saying things that were just really obnoxious and stupid. And so people just immediately thought that, and with good reason, as it turns out.
One of her comments was, "This is the gayest Star Wars ever."
Right.
Well, and that was one of the problems with the Rings of Power, is it's like, oh, well, we're coming out with this show called Rings of Power, and all of the press building up to Rings of Power was first black elf, first black woman of color dwarf. First this. It was all of the intersectional ideological messaging weaved into the advertising for the show to try and advertise to all of the fans, this is what we're trying to do. This is what is important to us when we're creating the show. And a lot of that existed around the Acolyte. When we got Leslie Headland clarifying and doing interviews and talking about it, she would double down on these sorts of things where they're like, oh, this is a gay Star Wars. And she's like, oh, I love it. I love that it's a gay Star Wars. Or, well, what about this? And she's like, oh, I'm doing that on purpose. So the very messaging before this even came out was very intersectional focused. And what that tells fans is what your priority is. It's not making a good movie or a good show. It's about making a show that has representation and fits into our ideological level. JC, you were going to intervene there for a second.
Oh, I was just saying that that because of the way that that they did their interviews and things, there was very little that they talked about Rings of Power or um, uh, the Acolyte, what have you. It was like you said, it was always about the cast and the political views and all that stuff. Very little story elements did they talk about, and we aren't interested in your politics. We're interested in the story.
Well,
That's how you get people to
we're
get
not
interested.
interested. Let's clarify. We're not interested. If you want to watch a show that focuses on the politics, then fine. But that doesn't mean I have to want to see it.
What I should say is that the normal viewer, that's the word I'm looking for. The normal viewer wants to know what the story is about so that they can get hyped on the story, because that's what they're coming for. They're not coming for the politics. They're not coming for your idealism and your ideology. They're coming to see a story about Star Wars. And all we've been told is that we have all this feminism, we have all this queer and transgender and what have you, and very little about what the story is going to actually be. And then we're told, if you don't like it, you can go somewhere else.
Well, and the messaging for the show before it even came out was going after people for not liking it because of the diversity or whatever. And I might point out,
we didn't know what the story was.
Well, and I might point out, it wasn't even the show necessarily. It was all of the messaging before the show. The infamous D23 where they came out and this was like, this is anti-misogyny and it's like Star Wars has always been male-centric and we're making it a female-centric and that gal going like, oh yes, Slay Queen sort of thing at the D23. And all of it sort of setting the foundation for going after people who weren't going to like it solely based upon ideological intersectional grounds. But we're once again getting in the weeds, putting the cart before the horse. Anyway, Forbes has a really good article, believe it or not. They don't always have good points, but in this one they do, and I'm going to read a bit of it here. There's been much gnashing of teeth and rending of garments over the past week over the cancellation of The Acolyte by Disney. The Star Wars series will not live beyond its first season, and it's unclear whether any of the characters or storylines set up in season 1 will be carried on anywhere else. I do think that the Stranger was a good character, and I'd be happy to see him in some other capacity. Darth Plagueis was spotted towards the end of the season, and I'd certainly like to see more of him. But the show itself was not a hit, largely because it was poorly written, riddled with plot holes, had very uneven acting from its various leads, and looked cheap despite its enormous cost. And while some outlets want to paint the cancellation as a win for toxic dude bros in the fandom, as if no women could possibly have disliked The Acolyte, a lot of women didn't like The Acolyte. And others are saying that its failure will cause Disney to try and avoid doing new things, more specifically. I think the real culprit is twofold. The show was far too expensive. It did not draw enough numbers to justify the cost. And 2, the show was far too expensive and did not receive enough critical acclaim and widespread fan support. This is a very fair point by Forbes. Who's a writer? Eric Kane. And here's the problem. We always make the financial argument. Usually, that's usually sort of how I interpret things.
Or
if the show is successful, what's that, Jason?
We go in that direction. We at least bring it up.
Well, right, because as much as people like to think that art exists to people misinterpret a lot of stuff when it comes to shows and movies. They think a movie exists as a piece of art, and because I like it, it exists in this little realm that I get to consume it, and I don't really care. Believe it or not, these are businesses. And when they spend a lot of money, they want to get a return on the investment because, believe it or not, businesses have to make money to exist. Art just isn't created for the sake of art, and people aren't just throwing money into holes to fill them solely for the sake of creating a Star Wars to represent your ideology or create diverse representation because you want it to be there. You have to create something people want to consume. And I know this comes across as a cynical capitalist consumer perspective, but that's the only thing that matters in the end, the bottom line, when it comes to these shows. If it's unsuccessful and doesn't make money, they're not going to make more. And if you love The Acolyte, you need to shill for it. You need to go out and get your friends to see it. And if they want to make a good show, they have to make a show that doesn't cater to a small percentage of highly political and highly ideological people. They have to grab a larger audience to pull them in. One of the biggest problems when it comes to content that's produced nowadays, whether it's Star Wars, or the Marvel Universe, or the DC Universe, or whatever realm in nerdom, Star Trek, they use an IP to get it out the door, and then they crap on the IP and the fans. Believe it or not, the fans will be your biggest champions if you make good content that honors the source material. But if you don't make good content that dishonors the source material, they will be your biggest critics, and they will beat the drum that you are crapping on the stuff that they love. It's funny, with all of the reaction, we saw tweets like lamenting its loss, and it's like, oh, is it terrible? Is it terrible when the thing you love gets canceled or gets crapped on or doesn't do well? How ironic. How ironic that you have no sympathy for the people out there that have been talking about the Marvel movies that they're upset about that they're crapping on, or the Star Trek shows, or all the other sorts of content, Doctor Who, that people love, and they get really bummed out that they're basically ruining it. It's not shocking The Acolyte was canceled, despite the fact that there was a lot of drama surrounding the show. There is no shock involved. People didn't watch it, and it cost too much. That's it. That's all that matters. And hey, why did people didn't watch it? Because it was bad, or it crapped on the universe. Believe it or not, you could make a Star Wars show that crapped on everything, but if it was good, you still might have gotten an audience. This was a fumble from the get-go. They were telling us that the politics were more important than the quality of the show. They were telling that the intersectional goals were more important than creating something of value. This Forbes article paints it out exactly, even if this is up your alley. Look, I can make a show that caters specifically to my personal interests. It can check all of the boxes of my political, social, moral perspectives. It could be everything catered to me. But everybody doesn't have my specific personal opinion that would cater to me. So you basically have a guaranteed audience of one, and that is not a show that makes it for a success. You need to grab a wider audience and write a show that captures more people.
Can I?
I think that. Go ahead, Ross.
Do you mind if I step in for just a sec, Rhett?
Oh, please do.
Like on that, I mean, there's some very famous shows that got canceled very early on. I mean, in the sci-fi realm, the most famous being Firefly. Like,
oh yeah,
a huge cult classic. It costs like $1 to $2 million. So I've heard $1 to $2 million an episode back in 2002. That's insane.
It is insane
for television to cost that much. So of course when it didn't bring in like the first season of 24 numbers, it's going to get canceled. It costs too much. It's just how it is. As good as these shows are, a show I really loved called Jericho had to fight tooth and nail to get a really truncated second season because of the writer's strike in 2007. And that's about like post-nuclear war America, like in small town Kansas. The audience wasn't there and the show cost too much, so it had to go. And because the reality is too, back then you're talking also about taking up valuable airspace on your schedule for shows that aren't performing. And now I guess maybe it's server space, but anyway. And do you mind if I talk about the money just a little bit, Rhett, or do you want to say?
Oh no, go if you want to go on a bit of a rant. I'm trying to slowly drag us into this. Say what you want to say.
Also, before you do that, Ross, I just wanted to point out that along with the money, people I think have a misconception with that. Um, if Disney made this for 180 million, it doesn't mean that Disney just expects to get 180 million back.
No.
If they did that, basically they got no money, none whatsoever. If they got 181 million back, they made $1. This show, you almost have to get like 320 million back in order to make it worth Disney's while to actually make a second season. A lot of people think, oh, 180 million, all you need to do is cover 180 million. I say, no, that's the bare minimum. That's
We're not talking
that much,
advertising and all the other things attached to it.
Paying for the servers.
Right, that's on top of. But if you only made 180 million on a $180 million show, you made nothing. You made $0.
It's a failure.
So it's a failure.
Plus, there's the black magic that is streaming. How does streaming work, and how do you justify the cost of these things in a world where there's no advertising to pay for this stuff?
Anyway, Ross, what do you got?
Well, so I don't know if you've noticed, Rhett, Jason, horrible kaiju monster, but a show that keeps being brought up when showrunners talk about these shows, it's brought up with Rings of Power. Mr. Tolkien said he wanted to make a Breaking Bad kind of story. People lamenting the loss of this show, The Acolyte, bring up like Breaking Bad, and how either its first season didn't perform as well as it would later, or different kind of storytelling, yada yada. Well, about Breaking Bad, let's talk about it. It had 62 episodes. Hey. 62 episodes, and that show cost $3 million an episode, which means the entirety of Breaking Bad cost as much as 8 episodes of The Acolyte. Now, I grant you, they can film Breaking Bad in Albuquerque, which I imagine does not cost a lot of money. I've been there. It's terrifying. The New Mexico desert isn't a costly venture to film in. But that also brings up the other problem that we've talked about on the show before, of these bizarre ballooning budgets on these projects, whether it's film or TV. And even because I wondered, I know it was brought up, Rhett, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but hadn't the showrunner, hadn't she talked about how she wasn't able to film on the volume set?
I don't recall.
Problem. And what's funny is, I bet you the reason they didn't is because it would have added more to the budget, because I'm betting, since we know that Disney charges itself to put movies on Disney Plus or whatever, I bet you and this is not an unusual thing, this is factored into budgets, they had to pay to use the volume set, and they didn't have it in the budget. Somehow, despite costing 20 some odd million dollars an episode, it just... back in the day, the reason why all these studios did everything in-house was to save money. Well, now they have literally. I mean, Disney is a horribly huge kraken of a conglomerate. I mean, every tentacle touches something in some industry somewhere, and yet they can't make anything cheaper than this. Like, where are you saving money, and why aren't you? Like, it's just, I think the industry is in a very, as we've talked about, and as is well evidenced, a very sick place right now. And I think it has a lot to do with how these various branches of themselves touch each other and like kind of interact. Is probably the better way to put that. It's mind-boggling. I mean, Breaking Bad, one of the most notorious shows. I mean, it's very well loved, very well thought of. Was made for the exact amount of money that this show made 8 episodes on. It's not that long ago. I mean, I did the inflation calculator. It would have cost $4.3 million an episode now. Like,
that's crazy.
Yeah. So I mean, come on. Like, something's going wrong somewhere. I don't know where the money's all going, but clearly there's an issue. And this is industry wide.
It feels like
the other.
Go ahead, Jason.
I was going to say the other thing that you have to take into consideration when you're looking at something like this is that even if Breaking Bad, their first season, they didn't do that well, or they didn't do as well as they would in subsequent seasons. That's not what we got here with the Acolyte season 1.
No.
The Acolyte season 1, the viewing numbers were so bad.
Well,
that
it must have been.
Yeah, they probably lost money on this. Whereas
not probably.
at least with Breaking Bad, they probably made some money. They probably made enough to make it worth their while to go into a second season.
Yeah.
It was probably one of those situations where it's like right on the edge, where it was like, we can see this is going in the direction that we want it to go. That if we give them a second season, the thing is that your first season is probably going to be one of your hardest. I think it's like the first and third seasons are pretty hard because your first season, you've got to start getting people attracted to the show, and third season, you got to keep people wanting to come back. But if your first season just absolutely bombs, then there's no recovery and you get one season.
Well, do you want to know an interesting financial fact? So initially, and we reported on it, when the Acolyte first came out, there were reports from Disney, and I think filtered through a few media sources, that the Acolyte's premiere was the biggest premiere of any show on Disney Plus.
Something like that, yeah.
Right. Do you know why they came to that conclusion?
Didn't they do a double premiere? Wasn't it 2 episodes?
Right. And the reason why that matters is because when they count viewership, they count minutes viewed.
Well, they count minutes.
And so
yeah.
when they release, well, hold on. When they released 2 episodes at once, they were counting those 2 episodes as total minutes viewed for the single premiere of the show.
So basically bad accounting.
So, well, they viewed the minutes viewed of 2 episodes as the premiere of what they might compare to a single episode premiere of other shows. Right. That's why that number was so skewed.
Yeah.
Which would mean even if you watched 35 minutes, which means you got through 1 episode and barely into another, you are 105% above. That's so dirt nasty. That is.
Well, that makes me wonder about the Rings of Power season 2 premiere. That's going to be 3 episodes.
3 hours? Yeah.
No.
By the way, looking forward to that.
Ross is psyched.
I'm not.
So what we need to do is we need to make sure that we only watch 1 episode a day, so they can't count it as watching all 3 episodes in one go.
Well, they'll count the premiere as the premiere week or something, I guarantee you. But before we get away from the Breaking Bad comparison, a lot of the Breaking Bad comparisons that were coming from the internet, and if you type it in, there was a lot of people making this argument. The Breaking Bad's first season had a slow start, and that the show got better in subsequent seasons, and therefore a show like The Acolyte deserves to give itself a couple of seasons to get its feet under itself. That's an interesting argument. However, if the show performs so abysmally bad compared to its budget, why would there be a justification for a second season?
Yeah,
that's what I was saying.
Like you can
this
look,
isn't,
argument.
This isn't a slow start. This is an abortive start.
And you know what? To be fair, it is being compared to a crime thriller, which is inherently a much cheaper kind of show to make. Hopefully, if it's not, you're doing something then a sci-fi epic-y kind of thing. But even if you slash the budget in half and only doing $10 million an episode, that makes so much more sense. Why, just crazy. And
ballooning
again,
budgets is a problem.
This show should not have been $180 million.
No. The good writing is what people loved Breaking Bad for, and it shows. I mean, it had such a really strong grip on culture that if you go and look at the data, because I have it pulled up right in front of my face, had pretty typical numbers, especially for a show on cable. You know, it started, you know, had a little bit higher at the beginning of the season, dropped a little bit by the end, but and it climbed throughout the seasons to where season 5A, because I'd forgotten, but they split that season in half. It started out with 2.93, ended with 2.78 million viewers. But the second half of that season, it ended that season. The last episode had 10.28 million viewers.
Yikes! Nice.
Why is that? Well, probably because they wrote very compelling television.
Yeah.
Like,
People are
you know,
coming back for the story.
like,
And-
which, by the way, that almost doubles the beginning of that season. That's how much of
Yeah.
people really cared about this show, and it can only be a show about the people in it, about the characters, because there's all other than that, it's just making meth and hiding money.
And once again,
So-
if the only messaging that comes out of the show is look at how diverse, look at how inclusive, look at how political and intersectional our show is, then the audience will interpret that this show is political and intersectional minded, and they'll think that's what it's about, and it'll scare them from the show. Lest I remind everybody that Amanda Stenberg came out with a diss track of people who didn't like the show. And there was comments from Disney insiders who said that alone was a major factor in killing it.
Yeah.
That her going out and literally one of the lyrics was "white tears was the point." That tells me what they're trying to do. That tells me what their goal was. Let's there's a few more articles to get through. We have the Mary Sue, which is very politically minded on the left side. Just take that in mind when we review their commentary. They got really annoyed by everything that's been going on. It seems a lot of the anger about the cancellation seems to be on ideological grounds, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
Most of it seems to be in the vein of you're canceling something with strong women and strong diverse characters. How dare you? It's because you're misogynist. Not even take into account the fact that people didn't like it. Like you can make a very intersectional show, and if there's not enough viewers, it doesn't matter. The show doesn't exist solely to cater to your political perspective. But let's read a little bit of this. The moment I fell in love with the Acolyte, that was the moment I knew that Star Wars was finally making something with fans like me in mind, which is how they view the world. Everything has to cater to my particular niche perspective. They brought out the cast. It was immediately clear that so many people who have historically been left out of the narrative would see themselves reflected into the story. No one's left out. No one's left out. If you are a hyper-racial individual and you see the world as I can only relate to things solely based upon whether or not something reflects my gender, sexual orientation, or race into it, then you're the problem. I can relate to shows that don't have white men in it, shockingly. I can relate to characters because guess what? Human beings are relatable to me. I know it's weird. I have a way of being empathetic and relating to the stories and experiences of characters that don't look exactly like me because they're human and I happen to be human. And there's a lot of crossover when you're both human. I mean, even Homeward Bound, I had some crossover with the dog. They brought out, and and this individual says, and I did fall in love. It was a Star Wars show that finally entered the female gaze. The Acolyte breathed new life into the franchise with brand new, compelling characters, incredible fight scene, explicit enemies too. So I want to point out, without getting bogged down too deep into basically her political messaging, I'm going to point out the two paragraphs I sort of roughly read through. This is telling you exactly how this person views everything. What's important to her about the Star Wars show? Not because it's good, not because she loves Star Wars, not because of the writing or the characters. It's because of the representation and because of the people that they cast, because they're women and because she can see themselves in the characters. Those were the first and most important things to this writer when it came to the show. And those are the first things that she spoke about. She didn't come out and say, I really love Star Wars. I love droids and everything about Star Wars and the fighting and the good versus evil. And it's exciting to see a female character in it. She went, I want to see female characters. Put them in Star Wars. Anyway, we got this paragraph going. Of course, anything that doesn't cater to cisgender white heterosexual masculinity has a tendency to bring out the trolls. Does it? From the beginning, the show was plagued by negative backlash. From the beginning, you were telling everybody that this had nothing to do with men, and it's mostly a diverse intersectional goal. From so-called real fans. Hey, look.
And if we didn't like it, to go away.
If we didn't like it, we are sexist, racist, misogynist, homophobic.
Yeah.
Real fans. First of all, I'm sure there was actual trolling and horrible things said. I disagree with those things. This is me setting the groundwork for clearly that is wrong. That is not why people didn't watch the show because they were sexist. They didn't watch because it was bad. Anyway, many people online, in the online fandom, experience a barrage of hateful messages. Barrage of hateful messages. Interesting. Oh, this is the wrong one. Let me find. Let's see. I've got something for you. All right. Barrage of hateful messages. Here, somebody did a compilation of people reacting to the cancellation of.
So the Acolyte was canceled.
It's definitely because incels didn't like two people of color holding hands. We're not gonna forget that.
They've hit the second tower.
Did you get that? Did you get
she
that,
was
Ross?
comparing it to 9/11.
9/11.
Yep.
Oh gosh, why?
Hateful
My sci-fi
people.
show being canceled is just as bad as 9/11.
Yeah. It's been canceled.
It was set up to fail from the beginning. When the Acolyte
Was it? The $180 million meant that they didn't believe in the project?
Yeah.
When Kathleen Kennedy said when she read the script that she cried, meant that she didn't believe in the project? Was that what you were telling me?
No, she.
Well, in a certain sense, the Acolyte was set up to fail from the beginning
by being bad.
Because they exactly. They well, not only just being bad, but they weren't actually creating a show for the fans of Star Wars. They were creating a show for activists.
Yeah,
and,
precisely. And we're retreading ground a bit. Let's get through this.
There just aren't enough activists to support the show.
Well, precisely.
Announced as a female-run show with Leslie Headland at the helm, starring a black femme and a diverse cast of characters, unlike we had seen in a Star Wars project.
And what you're telling me is this is who we were catering to, and that you're not welcome men. So men said, "Okay, I'm not welcome," and they didn't come.
Before the review bombers took to the internet before the show even had a chance to air.
Is it worth the price?
The morning over the cancellation.
I understand that it got review bombed to an insane degree by so many people who were hating on it just because of what seemed like internal prejudice.
Amanda Stenberg, who not only gave a phenomenal performance as Osha, but also as her twin sister May, had no choice but to stick up for themselves and defend herself against the vitriol and bigotry that she was receiving because Lucasfilm did not protect her.
Lucasfilm? Excuse me?
Yeah, apparently they just left her to hang out in the she was drifting out in the wind, and it was Lucasfilm wasn't doing anything to stick up for her and stuff.
So, what does that mean exactly? What do they expect? That's what I'm curious about. Because the reality is, other than people coming out making statements, which, unless you're like us, most people aren't going to care about or view. Like, what are they supposed to do? I don't understand. Like, what they didn't do anything to protect them. Like what?
I have no idea what she's expecting here, because the thing is like is she expecting LucasArts to, or not LucasArts, Lucasfilms to send people around to my house to like say, knock it off, stop dissing on Amanda Stenberg, or else?
Because
I
you
mean,
know what? Maybe she's right. Nobody went up to her and said, "Yeah, don't post the diss track. What the hell's wrong with you? Like, don't do that. Like, we're trying to sell this, and that's not going to help. And also, it's going to bring you a lot of heat that you probably don't want."
Well, I mean, Jason was being
But
a bit
that's not-
facetious, but the point,
Yes.
like, what realistically could they have done? A tweet saying don't? Like what exactly is it that Disney could have done to protect her?
she kind of, I don't know how to say this any other way, but she brought it on herself when she came out with that diss track. And Ross was kind of right when he said there should have been somebody that said, let's not do that. In the past, an agent, the studio, somebody would have come and said, no, don't do that.
This is a bad idea. No,
But-
you're right.
Yeah, but they can't do that anymore. If they had come out to her and said, no, that's not really a good idea, it would have been seen as stifling her authentic self or something like that. And she would have come out and said, you know what happened? I was going to post this diss track, and then Disney and Lucasfilms came and told me I was wrong and I shouldn't do that. And it would have been a whole different kind of firestorm.
Yeah.
I agree, and they mostly were very supportive, as far as I could get from Disney.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is
we
that,
got more to
like
watch.
you said, they freaking funded the show.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Oh gosh.
This is her mocking fans who didn't like it.
The supposed Star Wars fans were divided, and by that I mean incels of the internet and
It does sound divided because they seem united on the fact they didn't like it.
Yeah. I was going to say,
pretty
just before we were talking about this, I checked Rotten Tomatoes really quick. And it was like 18% audience score and 78% critic score. So I'm sitting there thinking, you know what? We're pretty united here as a fan base. Your show was trash.
of Twitter.
Managed to pull off enemies to lovers so well.
Lucasfilm didn't do anything to protect the cast and the crew of The Acolyte.
Why can't the girls?
What were they supposed to do? Send out tweets saying don't harass the cast and the crew? Well, were they supposed to surround them with large, burly men to punch people who got too close, yelling things they disapproved of?
I think it's that second one.
Yeah, they should have sent out the Mickey Mouse Clubhouse SWAT team.
Dude, don't mess with them.
Don't mess with
they
them.
work on
Fun
CIA
facts
black
for the
sites.
girlies.
To Twitter.
Yeah. Anyway.
But it
Yeah,
just
very
shows
sad.
how fragile you guys are to storytelling.
Who's fragile? I'm not upset that Acolyte exists. I think it's funny. You're fragile because you're mourning its loss. Who's
Have you noticed
fragile in
they're
this
using, like,
situation?
book talk language, the enemies to lovers thing.
Yeah.
Book talk.
Yeah.
So these are like fan fiction people.
Say like
for the
Go ahead, Silver.
no, I was just gonna say it's like Ross saying it's like a fan fiction. Or like those creepy ASMR videos like enemies to lovers.
Oh yeah.
You X
Well-
whatever character. That's what it felt like.
Now, I'm going to take a different tract. So you could say that we might be selecting more. It might be selective to get more sensational responses, so to speak. So I'm going to get IGN,
Oh sure.
who is an unfair and unbalanced site, however you want to slice it.
And anything but sensational.
And anything but sensational. Anyway, they posted a bunch of stuff. People reacted to the cancellation. The Acolytes, people who were fans of it. So let's get some of their responses. Shocking to devastate Star Wars news today. The Acolyte has been canceled after one season. So many plot threads unanswered. So this person definitely had expected more content and seemed upset. Really sucks to hear the Acolyte's cancellation show had a lot of promise. Positive. the Acolyte had been canceled. I'm baffled. I know a lot of weird people on the internet made it their whole personality to hate it. Not really. I mean, there was a lot of discourse around the fact that it was bad, but people will all move on. I will not remember the Acolyte a couple weeks from now, I swear.
Yeah, no one will think of it.
I'm glad you liked it.
It seems
genuinely one of my favorite Star Wars. Good for you. No,
it seems weird that we have these people that are like, oh, they put their personality into it. I don't know. Pot calling kettle here.
Yeah,
I'm guessing.
exactly. Unlike them, right? Huh?
Right. Acolyte getting canceled is one of the most disappointing things that I've witnessed in Star Wars for a while. That's saying something. It's generally bleak time for television, not because of the Acolyte. Everything gets canceled. Nothing gets a chance to find its footing. Companies wonder why no one's watching. It's because no one wants to get invested in. That's not why nobody watches. This is. I know you're coping with something you loved being canceled. People aren't watching. There's no evidence to support the fact that people didn't watch it because they didn't want to get invested in something that was going to get canceled. Disney doesn't invest $180 million in something that they don't wish has longevity. This isn't true.
Yeah, exactly.
And I know this makes you feel better about the situation, but that's not true. Acolyte being canceled sucks. Oh, deeply imperfect show, but at least it was trying to branch out with new ideas, characters. So here's the thing. This carries on to a greater point. Make your point really quick, Jason, before we lose the thread here.
I was just wondering if it really actually broke any new ground, or if it was just retreading and rehashing stuff that was already there. Yes, they did introduce diversity, inclusion, and equity, but I mean, other than that.
Well, they didn't even really introduce that to Star Wars. That's been around for a while, ever. Since episode 2, since episode 5, since Empire. I'm like, what do you... Okay.
Well, I thought I had an article, but just before we get too far away from that point, a lot of the commentary was saying that the Acolyte was, because of this cancellation, it's creating a world in where Disney is no longer going to be willing to try anything new, and that this is going to be a long-term negative effect on things like Star Wars because they're going to be, I guess, hesitant to try new and different shows. People, I hope so. Let's see. Anyway, I don't have it here, but it's not because it was new. I want new things. I want new, interesting stories. You just don't have to destroy what came before in order to create the new thing.
I was going to say, the irony in saying that about an IP show is hilarious.
Well, and the massive support. Let's go on the negative side and see some of people's reactions here. Let's see. Genuinely insane by me. F the racist, sexist people who couldn't share a single brain cell and turn an eye away to what they didn't like. The review bombing and harassing. Okay, this seems rational. I need to hear it from Star Wars themselves. They need to explain to me why they're canceling the only show with a predominantly non-white queer. Here's the thing. This tells you exactly what's important. They're not going like the other ones who genuinely seem to like it. They're not going, why is a good show that I like being canceled? They're saying, why is a good show that's not predominantly white with a queer cast being canceled? This tells me why it's important to you. This white right here. Not because you love Star Wars, but because of the politics.
They're not really even saying it's a good show. They're just saying, why is this show that's predominantly, et cetera, being
that's
canceled?
The point of it. Also, this just fuels the toxic side of the fandom. And here is the crux. Right here. So to give you a more meta perspective, if we step away from the conversation really quickly and look at it a bit more. I sympathize with people who genuinely like the show. It seemed to have generally been disliked. But if you liked it, that's disappointing. Most of the anger, and there's been a lot of anger. there's been a lot of anger in reaction to the show being canceled. A lot of, we've had death threats. We've had people hoping people die. And all of it comes down to essentially this comment right here. This just fuels the toxic side of fandom into thinking that they hate on something enough that they can get it canceled. This is not a W for the community. So people saw this show, and this is something we talked about a while ago, as a platform for the culture war. That's what they saw this show as. It was highly ideological in sort of the goals, in sort of their goals of representation and what have you. And people who didn't like it were seen as enemies on the other side of their ideological conflict. The Acolyte, at its core, whether or not anyone wants to admit it, and I'm telling you right now, was a battlefield for the culture war. And this podcast has talked about it, but that's why the vitriol is so aggressive. That's why people were crapped on it so much. That's why people are so angry that it got canceled. Not because a show they like got canceled, but because they don't like that the other side won. That something that they hated got canceled because they said it was bad. And it was like, this is just setting it up so that the toxic people think they won. And how horrible it is. Canceled over misogyny and racism. They're angry because people they view as misogynist and racist won. That they hated on something and it got canceled. This is most of why the reaction is as crazy as it is on the internet at the moment. It's because this is why they bring up, oh, poor white men and incels and all the insulting language and why this is why. It's a culture war, as we've said from the very beginning. And as we've reported on this show, it's all about crapping on people who didn't like it. And all of the anger about it being canceled had nothing to do, really, with whether or not the show was any good. It had mostly to do with the fact they hate the other side who didn't like the show. That's most of what people were upset about. I suppose there could be a long-term analysis of what happened around this show. There was a lot of the show's dialogue sort of revolved around the dialogue that existed on the internet. Like a lot of the show's week-to-week reaction revolved around the responses and the reviews and the conversation, and it was a highly criticized, not necessarily criticized negatively, which it was, but criticized into highly analyzed and highly shifted over and very, very scrutinized show. The show is very scrutinized. And for good or ill, if you don't produce a show that lives up to its potential, the hope, then the scrutiny will end up being largely negative, which seemed to be most of the internet's response to it. I mean, in conclusion, the show wasn't successful, just to go back to Forbes, because it didn't get enough viewers and it cost too much. And I get all of the anger around it. Why are people angry? I think, and I don't have data to support this, well, in general, that those who genuinely loved it were not enough of a demographic to keep the show going. And most of the people that were supporting it were mostly because they were pushing the ideology and they hated the people who didn't like it. Mostly people that hated it hated the politics, and maybe a lot of them focused too much on the politics of a show and not enough on the quality of the writing and stuff. There are good reviews of the show that talk about the poor quality of the writing and the acting and whatnot. Believe it or not, from this podcaster sitting in this chair, I want good Star Wars. Shocking. I want these shows to be good. Even if there's a bunch of black women in it. That's fine as far as I'm concerned.
Who cares?
If it was good, that wouldn't matter. Now, all of the intersexual dialogue around the show tells me what's more important to the creators. It's not making a good show, it's making an ideological show. But that being said, I want good Star Wars. I want good shows. That's what I want. And this show didn't succeed enough, in my opinion, to get the general audience. It seemed to cater to a niche political perspective that seems to be dominating Hollywood at the time, at the moment. And
not
when
only
you
did
lean in that direction, then those are the people you attract, and you lean away from all of the rest of the people that might be interested. Jason?
Well, not only did it lean into that niche, but it also was very unwelcoming of anyone outside that niche. It wasn't like, here, we're catering this show to you. Anyone else who wants to come along for the ride, you're welcome to join us. That was not the message. The message was, if you don't like it, touch grass. Get out of here. We don't want you.
To the point where they're making a rap song to mock you.
Yeah. the problem that you're running into here is that George Lucas, for good or ill, created Star Wars. And he created it in 1977. And because of what he did, that is the legacy that you have to deal with, which means that the vast majority of the fans of Star Wars are going to be male, regardless of race, just male.
Well,
and then if you come out
not to derail you too quickly, but the type of content is generally a male dominated. It's an action adventure show that attracts more men than women. Even if Star Wars has a legacy of being a male franchise, action adventure is mostly a male interest category. Anyway, so even if they made it all women, it was still going to be male dominated.
Right. Now, the problem that you're running into here is when you come into a situation like that and you say, look, I'm trying to make a movie, and the purpose of me making this movie is to serve an underrepresented portion of the population, a portion of the population that's not a fan of that particular genre. You're fighting an uphill battle here. What you need to do is cater to the fan that you already have and the people who are already going to be more inclined to appreciate your product anyway. And what's going to happen is they will bring the people along that are not necessarily fans. You do a Star Wars show and you make it good, you cater to a male audience, and what's going to happen? That male audience is going to bring female friends, children, what have you. They will bring them because they will say, look, this is awesome. Come and see it. But that's not what happened here. What happened here was we're making this for activists, and the activists, if they don't like you, they tell you to go away. And so we did. And then you were surprised and hurt that we didn't go see your show and that we had problems with your show. Your show, the thing is regardless of the DIE stuff, the writing was poor, the acting was hit or miss. There were huge plot holes. This is not these are not hallmarks of a good show. This is not the hallmark of a show that people are going to go to the office the next day and say, you know what? I watched this really great show last night. You need to go see it. They're going to go to the office and say, I watched a really crappy show last night. Don't watch it. Or because of all the stuff that you did beforehand.
I think word of mouth had a massive effect on the Acolyte.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, it did. Because people were getting online and saying how trash they found the show to be. There are reviews after review after review on YouTube that you can go look up, and it's like almost none of them have anything positive to say about the show, barring Manny Jacinto. I've from what I've heard online, he was the bright spot in this otherwise crap fest.
There was a lot of thirst traps around Manny. Let's be honest.
Yes.
There was a lot of skeevy, yeah.
The one thing that, let me just back up a little bit there. The most recent review I saw of it, they did go into it and they did say yes, there's all this thirst trap stuff that's crap, but they did also say that Manny Jacinto did a good job.
Yeah, no, I agree. From what I've
So,
seen, he did a good job. Wrap this up. We'll
yeah.
get to Ross's conclusion.
So that's I'm done. Go ahead, Ross.
All right.
Well, look, to me, this is like, yes, there is undeniably there's goofy politics around all this stuff. People seeing what they like in it and wanting it to be successful and all this stuff. And look, whatever, that's all fine, but you cannot ignore the realities of making this sort of content, and that is it's expensive and it needs to bring in eyeballs, and it didn't. There's been a lot of shows in the past that have been this kind of content or been a show for the girlies. But it was made with a much different scope in mind. You can't try and make a general action adventure show, even a dark action adventure show, and not try and consider more than just a certain aspect of your fandom. You gotta try and make it more broad, and they didn't, and didn't work out. And on top of that, the writing wasn't very good. That's the main issue at the end of the day. And it sucks for the people that genuinely did like it. I have a feeling a lot of the people being very vocal about the cancellation of the show, I bet a lot of them didn't actually watch it, and that's fine too. But don't lie. Don't be so disingenuous about it, I guess, because I didn't watch it, and I wasn't. But I also wasn't sitting there rooting for it to fail. I was fascinated to see what they would do with it after it ended. I figured they would just put it in the memory hole and just wait for people to forget about it before officially coming out years later and saying, yeah, it's never going to happen. Don't worry about it. But they didn't. They came out early on, and I think that has a lot to do, as we mentioned, with, I think it's pretty evident with the very vocal ways of the showrunner, some of the actors, and just the negative reaction that received. They didn't want to have to be holding this for very long, because the reality is Star Wars on Disney Plus has not done well, and they need to win, and this isn't a win. So.
Yeah, they do. Silver, your thoughts?
Thinking about a lot of the reactions people had with the show, much like Ross said, I don't think a lot of them watched it. But the ones online that we saw, that they were like, oh, finally there's a Star Wars for us, the minority. Why does Star Wars need to be for you, for a minority? Why can't you enjoy it? I don't understand that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if there was a show that was, let's say, like a bunch of black people in it, I don't know, and
Cosby Show.
I watched it.
Probably a bad example.
Family
Matters.
I wouldn't. Family Matters, sure. I wouldn't go into that show going, oh, I can't watch it. This show isn't for me. I have no representation. Why can't you just watch the show? You need to identify with something in the show? I don't know. It's an odd thing to me that a lot of people, you hear a lot nowadays with shows coming out.
Yeah, the representation is like the center point for them. Well, and it's a sign of the current political trend on focus on the intersectional political perspective. We don't get into that. We are not strictly a political podcast, but yeah, I just people care a lot about race and sex and gender a lot nowadays, and it's reflected into the shows. But when you do that, you're telling us you're very sexist, racist, and misogynist and bigoted, and like that's what I see when you tell me how important race is.
I just don't understand how that's any way to live. You know,
I don't think they live happy. I don't think they're happy people.
I was gonna say, I feel like you see the negative in a lot of things, and with making the Acolyte, it's like, oh, we have to fill this, and this, which is just gonna tank the ratings.
No,
it's not worth it.
It's not. It's not worth it. Hey, everybody, News Dump.
The Distracted Gamer Podcast's big steaming pile of news dump.
Now, what is probably going to dominate most of the discussion? The War of the Rohirrim trailer. So, there's a show coming out called The War of the Rohirrim, which is supposed to be about essentially the Helm from Helm's Deep. Sort of that Helm Hammerhand. Sort of his story and whatnot. This is specifically in the Peter Jackson universe, okay? This is Peter Jackson and the other creators of the original Lord of the Rings involved with this show. This was, to me, one of my more anticipated shows. I was excited for it. An animated show focusing around another aspect of the story that we know a lot about. And they definitely lean into that when it comes to sort of leaning on the Lord of the Rings perspective, sort of imagery. I'm going to skip through this trailer. I don't know if Ross saw the trailer.
Connection.
I did watch it, yes.
Oh, good.
It came up as an advertisement earlier this week.
Okay. So initially, at this beginning part, it looks really good for the first part of this trailer. The animation is really good. I like the representation of the characters. I like elements of the story. They're having big fights and stuff. So, to give you some plot clarification, this individual was trying to essentially marry Helm's daughter, this woman.
To his son.
To his son, right. And essentially in the story, in the original plot, he came in and Helm called him fat and he got upset and they said, we can't argue in this place of politics. Let's go outside. Helm hit him and kills him.
It's a one hit thing. Yeah.
Yeah. He flat out murders the dude. Like he blasts him and he dies. This is what happens in the
for a reason.
Well, right. Give me a second. Now, this is the reason. This is the original plot and the reasoning from this. In this, it represents it differently. And it's like, oh, I guess you don't have to be as particularly close to the original plot. The daughter in the lore doesn't have a name. She doesn't. She's not important. In the trailer, the way it represents it is they go to talk about this marriage and she's like, well, I don't want to marry him. I don't want to marry this man. I know this is going to be nitpicky because this is very much a modern perspective on sort of historical, like you have like rewritings of princess tales and stuff of like, oh, well, I don't want to marry the prince and I want to marry who I love. And this wasn't an option for women in this position. Just to clarify, you don't get to say that.
Yeah.
You're married off for political purposes in order to strengthen your family and the crown. That's what happens in these situations. And I realize they're trying to do a modern spin of like, well, I don't want to marry him. And it's like, in Tolkien's lore and historically in this sort of time setting and the analog to sort of a medieval setting, you don't get a choice. And she would have been perfectly happy and proud to do so.
Yeah.
To marry off to help strengthen her father's family and whatnot. These are what happens. So initially in the trailer, I'm getting the impression, hey, we're doing a little bit of oh, well, I don't want to marry him. I want to marry for other reasons. Oh, okay. Okay. I mean, I'm still not that upset.
For love.
For love. I'm still not that upset. Anyway, his dad dies. See, here's her telling him, I don't want to marry you. And he gets bitter. And in the lore, he doesn't forget and comes back and there's a massive war. Okay? And that's essentially what the story is. There's a massive war. In the movie, she is one of the greatest warriors of all time. And
See, this is where it lost me.
This is where it loses. This is where it loses me.
Yeah.
The
thing is I read an article and it was like, oh, this is going to be about Helm Hammerhand. I'm like, okay, that's kind of cool. But the trailer is all about her.
Yeah. It's
like,
about
whatever,
her.
but it's
about her.
You're really not telling the story of Helm Hammerhand.
He literally says a line in this where he says, "You could rule the world." Yeah, you could rule the world. Talking about his daughter that doesn't have a name in the lore. Who's called Hera in this.
Yeah.
Hey, look, she's climbing an ice cliff. Remember when we saw that in another show?
Oh gosh.
Oh, God. Why would you do
Galadriel's
that?
rules at you.
Because that show's been out 2 years. Why would you have any sort of a callback to that, unintentional or not?
Here's her being awesome.
And here she is, killing men who would have wrecked her. To be honest.
Well, especially when you're a princess and meant to be protected and preserved because you have political value when it comes to marrying you off to great alliances, she would almost have zero military training. It shows her fighting him, a prince who's been trained his entire life to be a warrior, fighting a princess who has had almost no difficulties her whole life. This shouldn't be close.
Thing is even if we go back to Éowyn from the Lord of the Rings trilogy, Éowyn did have some fighting training. She was definitely a horseman, horsewoman, whatever you want to call that. So it is understandable for this particular princess to maybe have some training in martial combat and stuff. But even then, she wouldn't nearly have as much training as this other prince that she's easily besting.
Well, especially when the prince is taller with a longer reach, with a harder swing, who's stronger naturally. I mean, look, we don't get to get bogged down in the issue of this princess who's lived her entire life in a castle and we have no reference for her. She doesn't even have a name because she's not as important. It's mostly events around her marriage and then the death of the other guy and the war that ensues. Instead, the show has become about her being awesome. That's what the movie is about now, which is factually inaccurate when it comes to Tolkien's lore, which throws in a whole other mess of problems. I mean, there were basically only 2 shield maidens ever named in Tolkien's lore, and one of them was Éowyn. That's it. So, way to rewrite it, I guess. Like, I was looking forward to this, and now I'm not. It's just going to be a woman champion. Look how awesome I am, and I'm going to win this war for everybody. Like you would assume. Like my assumption would be it would be about Helm Hammerhand in that story, but instead it's about the story of a girl being awesome. I mean, I don't know how to phrase this, as this looks like a piece of shit better than I have anyway. Silver, are you excited for women being awesome?
No. The only training she should have had is in knitting. This is definitely not that.
God, you have so much internalized misogyny.
Oh, I know.
Are we being overly picky when it comes to the lore? Because we're fans of the lore?
No.
No.
Because I wanted to stick to the lore.
Well, when they say that
As well.
Peter Jackson is coming back to produce this this movie, no, you're not. It comes with expectations. They're not probably meeting those. I'm going to play devil's advocate, bearing in mind I don't necessarily believe what I'm saying. Is this cut to look like this for the trailer?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Like, what if that is all that character gets throughout the whole movie?
Is those few scenes that we get in the trailer?
Yep. And
So
the
it's
rest of it is actually
manipulative.
about Helm Hammerhand.
It's manipulative to make her seem like she has a bigger role. Well, if that's true, and that's an interesting devil's advocate, if that's true, then they are purposely trying to represent the show in a different way than what it actually is, and that is a fault on them because what they're representing, because that's what the trailer is, it's trying to to represent the show in a way that get you interested. And what they're trying to tell us, it's all about this female character.
Right. Just a thought. I don't know if I don't think that's true.
No,
it might. There might be some truth to it, but I think she's still, if not the main character, a major character, like the secondary protagonist.
The trailer gives you the impression she's leading armies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and I have a feeling it. I bet it won't be like that, but I bet it won't be far from it. The reality is, I'm probably still going to see it in theaters because my girlfriend really likes Lord of the Rings. Although she tried to watch Rings of Power, as I've stated on this podcast before, and she hates it. So,
is she going to be psyched because women being awesome? Is she going to be into that?
Well, she hated Galadriel, so no. She hated Rings of Power Galadriel, so no, not really. I think she's going to be more willing to give it a pass on that, or at least give it a chance, because of the Eowyn Shield Maiden thing.
Yeah, but Eowyn was real. She existed. No one had a problem with it.
Right, and as far as the lore goes, I know, but we'll see. I think it depends on how the vibes go in the film, if she likes it or not. If it's trying to stick to more of that kind of story and that feeling, she'll be fine with it. If it goes a little bit more Rings of Power-y, she's gonna loathe that movie. She's gonna hate it. We'll see. I will report back in December how she feels.
Oh, all right. Let's not drag this. Go ahead, Jason.
I want to say that having a strong female lead is not the problem here, because there are movies that have strong female leads that are beloved. The problem is when you, and this goes back to everything we said about Rings of Power. When you're basing something upon the work of an established author that has an established fan base, don't screw with it.
Yeah.
All right. Let's get this turd out really quickly. So an interesting post that sort of blew up the media recently. No. We have Liz Wheeler, who I think works for The Blaze. Don't quote me on that. Anyway, she came out with, I guess, a poll, a study.
No.
It's hard to say because no sources were provided, and there was a lot of disagreement when it came to sort of Twitter notes on this comment.
So this could have just come from off the top of her head.
Well, right. Anyway, she puts up that it's considered the most unattractive trait in men, according to women. At the top of the list is considered playing video games, then collecting action figures, magic tricks. Magic tricks are cool. Online dating, online trolling. I mean, how many men are honest if they're trolling? Gambling.
Yeah, well, and like saying that.
Model trains. So look, we could taxidermy. We could nitpick this. I'm going to tell you right now a few things. Women would probably find collecting figurines more unattractive than playing video games, seeing as how most men play video games. Collecting figurines is pretty awkward. Also, building model trains is pretty awkward. I would put it with collecting figurines. Taxidermy's creepy. Comic book collecting, in the area. Bird watching, I don't know why women would have issues.
I was to say, who's hating on the Autobahn Society? Come on.
Yeah.
me.
Who's hating on the Twitchers?
So let's take this data for what it is. I'm going to tell you straight out, I've known women who find men who play video games extremely unattractive. So there might be something to this point, despite the fact that most men do play video games. Yeah. As far as the accuracy of the data here, a lot of it's in question. I don't know how we can judge this accurately is the problem, and whether or not it's true. But let's take it at face value and assume it's true. I mean, go ahead, Jason.
I have serious questions and serious doubts about this because I've seen I've seen videos online, and obviously this is just anecdotal evidence. I haven't done a full blown study on this, so what, take it for what it's worth. The fact that women expect men to have a 6-figure income and be taller than 6 foot in order to be considered attractive. I just don't think that this is really as what she claims it to be.
I think there are women who find video games very much a trigger for them. I think that's...
I'm sure there are.
In their mind.
But at the same time, it's like if your sample that you're collecting this from are women who would only date someone who is 6 foot or taller and goes to the gym religiously, you're going to have a scale like this.
Well, sure, and we can have a greater discussion when it comes to unreasonable sort of expectations that women tend to have when it comes to men, where sort of what they find attractive is vastly different from what men find attractive, and that women tend to think that men think the same as them, which is like that's for dating podcasts, which isn't this. The reason why I bring this up, which is a side note, because people might consider us to be very right-leaning, which we kind of are in our commentary, but we're not political, so to speak. Brings to a Daily Beast article where Matt Walsh has notoriously called people who like anime satanic and into children and a bunch of other stuff. So my greater point that I'm going to bring up here is one of the bigger flaws when it comes to the right wing, when it comes to the nerd space, where they don't understand it and they push it away, even though a lot of them might actually garner political support from nerd geeky people. But because they don't understand it, they marginalize it and push it away, thinking that it's bad or satanic or nerdy, or women don't like people who play video games. And they demonize people for what is essentially interests in their free time. And this is a massive mistake, because the newer generations lean more in this direction than not. And you might prefer a world that exists in the 1940s or 50s that don't consume anime and don't play video games, but that's not the world we have. And so you're lambasting the majority of young people that you need to support your political perspective when you need them, and that group isn't shrinking, it's growing. And this is a poor tactic, despite the fact that you might not get anime. They do. Like, this is the problem that happens every time when you have older generations versus newer generations. It's like, newer generations suck, their music's too loud and I don't like it. And it's like every generation says the same stupid thing. And I've included these articles in the point where the right is making a massive mistake because they don't understand it and they think it's lame and nerdy. They are basically not being inviting enough to a demographic that might be receptive to your messaging. Disagree?
Not only that, but no, I do agree. The something that I wanted to point out is that anime is such a blanket term for that particular medium, that there are shows that you may not be an anime fan. I know Rhett, for instance, has watched anime with his mom, and his mom is not really an anime fan.
No,
but she has found shows that she likes. Well, because anime is just a medium for storytelling.
Well, yeah, it's just another type of show. And as I've told her, it's like, I like shows that are good, and I don't like shows that are bad. And because anime can tend to be weird and goofy, I tend to pick shows that are more grounded, slice of life, more accessible to sort of a normie, so to speak. And she likes the shows because good shows are good. Like, why is it that big a deal? It's an anime. But your
mom is probably not into the one about the dungeon and eating things in the dungeon. Probably not
the
that
vending
one,
machine. No, she would. Here's the thing: the vending machine anime, I hate. It sucks big time.
But you had to
I
watch
think, was it Violet Evergarden that you said that your mom liked?
It's her favorite. Yeah, she loved that one.
Yeah.
And it's
So
good.
the thing is that if you are into good storytelling, there is an anime out there for you.
Sure.
Oh yeah.
You just have to give it a chance.
Well, and here's the thing. She had a lot of bias when it came to anime.
Yeah.
She did. She was like, oh, well, it's just cartoons, and I don't want to watch cartoon.
Uh-huh.
And so I had to bring her in through Ghibli, which are very serious, sort of remind you of a Disney-esque sort of,
yes,
like better quality, enjoyable. She loves, that's not Spirited Away. Spirited Away, I love. She loves the one with the wizard.
Howl's Moving
Castle.
Yeah.
She loves that one. It's her favorite. I got her a music box with the main theme from Howl's Moving Castle in it, where you can open it up and it plays the
adorable.
song. Oh, yeah, it's a cute show. And it's not like I'm trying to convert her. I don't care, and I'm not that invested.
Right.
I'm not a shill for anime. It's just there's good shows out there and you can access it. The bigger point, I suppose, is we're getting off track, is that the right wing are making a mistake. They don't understand the newer generation and the stuff they're into that's nerdy. And because they don't get it, they are pushing these people away who may agree with you. And that is a flaw in how you're approaching things. The point is to be a big tent, not to be exclusive or push people out. Believe it or not, there are trans individuals who happen to be conservative and right wing. There are atheists who happen to be conservative and right wing. There are a lot of black people that happen to be conservative and right wing who might not classically fit into those molds. The mistake you might need to, and this goes for any political perspective, is to push out people who might side with you politically. And that was sort of my point, is sort of the disconnect with these right-wing commentators who, just because they don't understand it, doesn't mean that they might even be on your side. There's a massive sort of disconnect between these people. Anyway, you get my
Rhett,
point.
I will purity test my way through politics. Don't you dare stop me.
Purity test. Oh. Anyway, shifting on some articles, Jason, we have got a lot to get through and we don't want to drag this out too long.
Yeah.
So real quickly.
Basically, this article is saying that the major mistake or major controversy that season 2 is repeating is we're getting the stores. And they're all black hobbits, by the way.
Oh, exciting. Politics all day, every day. Really quickly.
Marvel canceled Blade again.
Wait, the movie they were making forever with Mahershala Ali? Oh my god!
Yep.
Well, first of all, finally.
He doesn't
second
deserve
of all,
this.
why? No. Well, like, because this is the one that they kept changing the story over and over again. It was going to be about his daughter, right? At one point.
Yeah, his daughter and her friends.
Like what? Oh my god. Yeah, I mean, he should be thankful that they're not going to attach his name to that garbage. Now he can walk away and be free. My God.
Have we able to confirm this? Let's see. Won't be surprised to learn that Blade has been removed from next year's release schedule. Production issues have been plagued the reboot. So it may Marvel cancels Blade.
It may
I don't know
still
if
come
that.
out.
I don't know if that means it's
But
canceled, but it's been removed from next year's release schedule.
It's not going to come out next year.
That to me means there could be a massive retool.
Yeah.
If we
they
still
got to
end up
let it
getting
go at some point. How much money can you spend on this thing? My God.
It's Disney. They will fill holes with money and think that's an efficient way to fill a hole.
Jeez.
All right, Jason.
So Randy Pitchford came out, and basically his reaction to people thinking that the Borderlands movie was so terrible was something along the lines of, "You really like what we do in video games, people. That's what I'm getting from you."
Do we? Do we? I don't.
Well,
Randy, you greasy fuck. Your games suck, and so did that movie.
well, because they're making more money. They're making more money on the Borderlands games and adjacent. That was his take.
That's because they had massive sales, you psychopath.
Oh my God. God, I hate that greasy bastard. Ugh. Go do some more magic, you creep, with porn on your thumb drive. My God.
Okay, so Disney is this just came out recently.
Oh, gosh.
Apparently, this lady went to Disney. Um, she was assured multiple times that the food she was eating was not going to did not contain the allergens that would kill her, and she later died of anaphylactic shock.
When she went
As a
back to her
result of
hotel,
eating at a
as I
Disney park.
recall.
Yeah.
Oh.
They even were able to administer the EpiPen, and she still died.
Oh my
So
God.
now the husband is suing Disney for wrongful death, and Disney wants it thrown out because in the past he bought Disney Plus and agreed to the terms and conditions of Disney Plus, which is that all of the lawsuits have to go through mediation instead of through the courts.
There's some more clarification to be made with this. So she ate at a restaurant area that wasn't in a Disneyland. Okay. It was part of a restaurant, sort of collection of restaurants that was owned by Disney.
Springs, right?
Disney Springs, that's right. That was owned by Disney.
Disney Springs.
And the reason why I'm clarifying this is because Disney made a comment where they claimed that it's not really, they're not liable because it's not directly a Disney location, but then also made the argument that because the clause in Disney Plus, as well as buying an Epcot ticket, is that if there's any lawsuit, that it needs to be arbitrated solely by a judge, basically one of Disney's preferred arbitration. That's sort of the clause. So you have to arbitrate through their people instead of letting it go to court. And because they had bought a ticket and had a free 30-day Disney Plus or something like that they are wrapped into this clause. And the reason why it's weird that they're making the claim that isn't really a Disney thing, but then also wanting to have their cake and eat it too, where it's like, yeah, but you're also under the Disney Plus clause, is weird. The reason why this news blew up, which happened, the reason why this news blew up, which happened a couple of years ago, is because it's really dirty for Disney to go like, your wife died, and they have, and I quote, had told the restaurant that she had severe peanut allergies and still got something with peanuts that killed her. So that clearly there's some fault involved with these restaurants. And there was a lawsuit going forward, and Disney's doing a very pervy, creepy thing by saying you can't sue us because of these clauses in Disney Plus and tickets bought at Epcot Center.
This is one of the trashiest things that Disney has ever done, in my opinion.
Well, and the reason
I don't
why
know, didn't they sue a family for putting Spider-Man on a kid's headstone?
Yes.
Nice.
Because of copyright.
Please never change.
Well, and if Disney were classy, what they should have done and been like, we're going to give you a license for using Spider-Man on that headstone, and we're going to charge you $1 for the license.
Okay,
that would have been awesome.
Because look, to be fair to Disney on that one, you have to defend your IP.
You do.
Because if you don't, then that brings legal ramifications. However, you can also just walk into the guy's house and be like, all right, here's this. I will give you this for, like, you can license this for a penny. Do you need a penny? Here's a penny. Give me that penny back. All right. Anyway, bye. Like, for this one time,
that way they're
lifetime
legally
use of the
protecting their IP.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, my God. But no, be gross instead. Don't make any contact with the family.
Well, this is the type of gross thing you get out of Disney where you're like, ew, why would you? By the way, there's been updated news. This case looks like it's going to be going forward. There's enough negative feedback on the internet that it's like, the reason why they would do arbitration, by the way, is arbitration, as anyone who's been involved in the legal system as I have, not on the wrong side of it, but as a sort of legal assistant. And anyway, arbitration is tends to be done by a former judge, and the judge comes in and arbitrates between the two parties. The reason why you want to do arbitration, especially the way Disney wants to do, is they're going to use a preferred former judge that they use all the time that might favor them, as well as former judges tend to not be emotional when it comes to responding to these legal issues. So in all likelihood, he will deal with this passively and basically according to the law, and likely favor the business in those sorts of arbitrations, which would benefit Disney itself. It's very creepy, but it does look like it's going towards a court. It's being put forward. They're not going to get bogged down on arbitration, it looks like.
Right. But on top of that, if you go through arbitration, then you settle the matter. And with this, you get a court ruling that could go against you, which looks much worse than if you just go to arbitration, which is you can just sweep it under the rug.
Well, and it seems like the intention of the husband is to drag them through court, because he's asking for something like $50,000 or something, which you would think it would be like tens of millions. But the reason why, well, so the people know, the reason why he's doing something like that, is asking for $50,000, is so that when the judgments come down, they add more to it in punishment. You ask for low so that they add punishment on top. There's a reason why he's asking for low. But it also seems like his purpose is to drag Disney through a court case to sort of prove a point more than anything.
Yeah.
At any rate, let's move on. No, we've had that one. I've got a lot of stuff to click through. Dude, there's a lot. I hope one day I can give this to Silver to manage.
For those of you who were really wanting to see Borderlands, the movie, but you just didn't want to pay for the ticket, they're releasing it on streaming.
Nice.
3 weeks later.
Earned back just $21 million of his $110 million budget. I guarantee you, for it to break even, it would probably have to be closer to $250.
Yeah, probably.
So that is, it might be one of the worst performing movies to budget that I've ever seen.
It's pretty gnarly. It is shocking.
Shocking.
So apparently an industry insider is saying that Spider-Man 4 has cast its villain. The article doesn't really say who the villain is going to be in the next Spider-Man, but Sydney Sweeney, apparently she was in the Madam Web.
I don't believe it.
No, she's in the running to play Felicia Hardy.
Yeah, I don't believe it. This is rumor, and this is fan casting. Sydney Sweeney is super popular right now. That's why they're putting her forward. They already race swapped Black Cat and other content. I don't buy. This is a hopeful rumor. This is what it is. Sydney Sweeney is not going to be in this film. It's because she's popular at the moment. That's why.
One of the things that this article delves into that I thought was pretty interesting was the fight between Disney and Sony, or Marvel and Sony was what I should say. Marvel wants to do more of a grounded Spider-Man story, and apparently Sony is pushing to have Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield appear and do another multiverse Spider-Man story.
It's the last thing they need to do. It needs to be brought out for very
hard
big deals.
I don't know how to confirm any of this. It's hard to tell where the rumors go. I'm going to tell you right now that the deals between Spider-Man, sort of Sony Spider-Man with Marvel, we may not see another Spider-Man crossover with the MCU the way things have been going. So
that's what I was going to ask.
Yeah, any return, I don't think. I would be very shocked.
Just be a Sony project, right?
Yes, I think Sony's going to do their own thing when it comes to Spider-Man at the moment.
Well, what a change, huh?
Well, No Way Home actually had a lot of drama between coming to agreements between the two sides, let alone a Spider-Man 4. I think it's very possible that Sony just does their own thing, and that we don't see a crossover again. It's sort of implied they're in the same universe, but we don't get to use each other's stuff anymore.
Right. So, for the 15th anniversary of Coraline, it was re-released into studios, and it outperformed Borderlands.
Borderlands was such an abysmal failure, I'm not surprised.
Good.
Okay, we are getting a new Blade Runner series. It's going to be called Blade Runner 2099. It's going to be on Amazon Prime, and it's going to be a series.
I already don't trust it.
Yeah, it's going to star Michelle Yeoh. She's going to play a replicant, apparently, that's nearing the end of its lifespan. They also have Hunter Schafer, Dimitri Arbold, Louis Gribbin, Caitlin Rose Downey, and Daniel Rigby that are in it. The person who's overseeing it is Silka Louisa, I think is how you say it. Apparently, she did a reality, or she did a thriller called Shining Girls
That
on
doesn't
Apple
give me
TV.
any confidence whatsoever.
Yeah. Apparently, she was also the producer of season 1 of Paramount's Halo series.
Oh no!
And Halo sucks.
Oh no! Uh-oh!
Yeah.
Oh, that's not good. Oh, poor Blade Runner.
So bad news is what you're telling me.
Yes.
Bad news.
That's new.
Oh, so this one we've already gone over. You can skip that one. That was just an article about the War of the Rohirrim trailer. So we have a new Dark Wizard in season 2 of Rings of Power. Apparently, the showrunners have been addressing this particular person. They're kind of saying that I don't know. It doesn't make any sense. They were saying that because Tolkien in the Lord of the Rings, Gandalf was tempted by the ring, but he didn't succumb to it because he knew that there was the temptation to use it, misuse it. But Saruman, because he was also tempted, but he did fall to the dark side. They have they have an open door here to have a wizard in season 2 of Rings of Power that is a dark wizard.
No, you don't.
That is, evil.
Dark wizard.
I mean, well, first of all, there are only 5 wizards. That's it. Now you can have dark side,
fancy.
like Saruman uses magic, and Galadriel uses magic, and Elrond uses magic. So you can have like an evil Maiar or something, but there's only 5 wizards. That's it. And they're steering off into the war, off the road and off a cliff when it comes to honoring the lore, just like they always have. Whatever. They're ruining everything. To get through the Last of Us stuff really quickly. Apparently, Skybound's Transformers comic is so popular it's currently outselling every DC comic book.
Oh my god. Oh, you mean that?
See
that
how
thing that
far
was
you
to sell toys
followed.
to kids? Uh-oh.
Yeah. Transformers overall is number 4, it looks like.
Wow. It's too bad the movies all went to shit, huh? They could be making some bank.
It's outdoing Batman.
That is hilarious.
Well, this should
bad's
tell
the
you
Batman run then.
This should tell you how weak DC is at the moment.
Yeah. Speaks volumes here.
Black Myth Wukong is a hit, but why is the game? So I tried to figure out what on earth is going on with the drama around this. And I had to do a little bit of digging, and the conclusion I came to is essentially IGN. So the developers of this game that has been massively popular, just hugely popular, like 2.5 million concurrent players after the first couple weeks. Massively, people love this game. And good. The game's good. People like it. It's about Chinese mythology. Awesome. So IGN went looking into the game, and they got really pissy. Because apparently the developers of the game, like the founders of the company and stuff, made what IGN called sexist tweets and sort of caused a bunch of drama around the fact that they had tweets that they don't approve of, and then tried to get Game Science, the developer, to comment on it, whose response was, "We have no comment, we're sorry, we're only looking to answer questions related to the gameplay, which IGN also caused a lot of drama around. But that's not where the drama ends. When the developer put out Black Myth Wukong and the marketing team sent out demos or pre-review copies to content creators, social media and whatnot, they apparently had a list of demands in order to be able to do the game as an early release. And the demands included things like, don't talk about a feminist propaganda, COVID-19, China's politics or policies or opinions or news. Overall, the demands essentially in their pre-release stuff were don't talk about politics or anything controversial. Just play the game.
Just talk about the game. Imagine that.
So a few things. A lot of the outrage in response to this was people were like, you're trying to censor people and their political perspectives, feminist propaganda, blah, blah, blah. Hey, you're right. Guess what? You don't deserve to have a pre-release copy in order to review it because you're a content creator. If you want to talk about politics, guess what you get to do? Buy it on your own when it releases and talk about all the feminist content you want to. That's an option. But the reason why they're giving you early copies is because they're like, hey, don't talk about politics when you're playing our game. Like, that's it. And that's not unreasonable as an expectation when you're getting early release. And I think that's refreshing when it comes to the gaming sphere where everything's so political that they're just saying, hey, don't be political. Now, it's funny that they specifically said feminist propaganda in the list of things not to talk about. But that's the
can I just say
controversy around it, Ross.
You know what this reminds me of?
What's that?
This reminds me of you remember when Kingdom Come Deliverance came out?
Yes.
And I can't remember the guy's name. It's Daniel something or other. He's like one of the main founders of the company that developed that game. Where he had because people asked him about the diversity in the game and this and that, and he's like, no, this is what it is, and this is how I want it. This is how we want it to be. I know the history of my own country, and they tried to make a big deal out of that, and it kind of went nowhere. This reminds me a lot of that. And the other thing that's funny to me is this is the I wish these publications like IGN and many others that are now dead had this much scruples when they were taking advertising money and giving reviews to big games like Mass Effect or Kane and Lynch. Remember those days when they would just give like games that weren't that good or that had problems really good reviews, and right next to that review was a big banner ad from that
Gamergate was a big deal for a reason. There was an incestuous relationship between and we've said this before. There's the thing with video games and video game journalism is weird because we don't really have this as aggressively as we have with any form of media. Literally, we have an entire form of media structured around a form of entertainment and a product. And inevitably, you're going to get people that are taking kickbacks or money, or because the way you review something is going to circle around sort of the reception of that game, and developers are very obsessed about whether or not they get good reviews or good responses to the video game that they produce, and they care a lot about that. So it is a weird section when it comes to news and media. A little bit more out of
Hollywood
this.
Media was.
Absolutely.
Back in the studio days.
So the IGN writer, when it came to smearing, I don't know if you call it smearing, but reporting on, they had an agenda when it came to game science and calling them all sexist and whatnot. So people, whenever you do this, people are going to go into your background and start looking into what you have to say. This is them talking about how pissed they are. And don't play it, pirate it, and don't tell me if you're playing it, how obsessed they are about these things. Anyway, do I hate white people? Yes. And if you're a friend, you'll understand why this is okay. So apparently the individual that reported on these things when it came to this game's release had people shifted through this individual's Twitter account to be like, oh, you're also a piece of shit, apparently. Oh, I hate white people. Interesting. Yeah, so...
What a weird fit to have. Like, that's just such a bizarre tantrum.
Yeah, well, it believe it or not, and this podcast is not excluded, people have biases when they come into reporting on things. And as much as you might like to pretend that your favorite reviewers on places like IGN are fair and balanced, which isn't a thing that exists, are being fair about reviewing the game or the content, they're not. And this individual not only has an agenda, is very obviously pushing an agenda that they disagree with, I guess, the game or the developers or whatever reasoning this individual has, and has a lot of very strong, bigoted racial bias involved with how they report things. And it's not shocking to see that come out of their tweets.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But that's what we get. It looks like we shoved this turnout really as fast as we could. I think we're going to call it right here, everybody. Oh, actually, something we don't want to miss. All right, I got to bring this up really quickly. I nearly forgot. And no. Oh, we got it. Okay. What is it, Jason?
This is actually the final.
Oh,
final
okay.
match. Yeah, we finally made it to the final match. You've gone too far, I think. Let's see.
Well, you've got 4 slides, and I don't know which one I'm trying to click on.
Yeah. We have Luke Cage versus Iron Fist in the final here. Luke Cage, 6'6", weight 420 pounds. Just to kind of remind people, bulletproof skin, damage immunity, super dense body mass, healing factor, superhuman strength, hand-to-hand combat, and superhuman durability. Iron Fist, 5'11", 175 pounds. Pyrokinesis, healing factor, martial artist, hand-to-hand combat, and he harnesses his spiritual energy, his chi. I think personally I'm coming down on the side of Iron Fist for this one. Luke Cage is much more of a brawler, while Danny is the much more nuanced and trained fighter. In this case, he does have quite a bit to overcome as far as Luke Cage's physical abilities go, but that's kind of his, Iron Fist's abilities grant him that, he has his fighting skills. He has the ability to channel his powers, and I think that would allow him to overcome Luke Cage's abilities himself. But what are your thoughts?
So here's the thing. Luke Cage, they fought before in the comics, and it's always been close. And it's always been depicted as there's a lot of parity between the individuals. And Danny Rand would never willingly kill Luke Cage, but since this is a fantasy fight, for the sake of these discussions, Luke Cage is perhaps as even a fight as you can have with Iron Fist. It's almost like the perfect yin-yang contrast between the two individuals. Luke Cage is extremely durable and extremely resistant. Danny hits really hard because of the Iron Fist power.
Defensive fighter against the very strong, aggressive attacker.
Right. Of all people that could fight Luke Cage, Danny Rand has the one power that can damage Luke Cage. On top of that, Danny Rand is naturally a better hand-to-hand fighter. So of all of the I don't know who's coming up in any of the other fights, if anyone's left, Jason.
No, this is the final.
So this is the final. So
we're down to the last two.
If we look at other people like Tombstone or Mr. Negative or whatever, I think there's a good chance that Luke Cage beats these guys. But of all of the matchups, Iron Fist is the one that has the power that's capable of hurting Luke Cage, strangely enough, in this matchup. I think the fight's extremely close, but the problem is
Yes.
Danny Rand has the exact power that's capable of actually hurting Luke Cage, who's got the exact power that could defend against practically most things, except for perhaps the Iron Fist. And on top of that, between the two, Danny Rand is going to be more skilled as a fighter. Luke Cage is kind of like a battering ram. He just blasts his way through people.
Yeah.
Not that he's not good at fighting, but he's a bull in a china shop. He's very resistant and strong and whatnot. I mean, as close as the fight is, I would side with Iron Fist myself. So...
Any objections from our kaiju monster or Ross?
No, enough about it.
Nope.
I'm going for my man Luke Cage, and that's
No
all there is
idea.
to it.
Ross is making a racial argument. All right.
Yep. The superior race will win.
Okay.
I'll go with the majority. Okay.
Silver is afraid of
The
standing
majority
out.
majority was Iron Fist.
Was it Iron Fist? Okay, I say Iron Fist.
Oh.
We almost had a tie. Yeah, Iron Fist.
All right, Iron Fist wins our tournament.
Racist.
I should have come up. If I knew this was the final one, I am super racist. If I knew this was the final one, I'd have come up with like a victory thing, but I didn't. So we didn't.
Oh yeah.
But it was an interesting thing to go through. Who would come out on top? The problem with a lot of these matchups is it depends on how the bracket plays out. Because
very much so.
Iron
You
Fist
have
could
some
have
people
easily
that would
lost
do well
against maybe a Mr. Negative or something, but because it ends up being these two who are best friends, he's just the guy to beat Luke Cage. Ironically enough. And it's like Iron Fist might have lost against Daredevil.
Daredevil has much more in common as far as fighting prowess and things with Danny than he does with, say, Luke Cage. So,
yep. Anyway, congratulations to Iron Fist. We might have to discuss some more silly arguments to be had. There's going to be a lot of podcast format changes as we try and update everything. Look forward to our massive... We did record a Rings of Power episode where we discussed a lot of stuff about Rings of Power that hasn't been published yet. And we're gearing up to Rings of Power coming here very quickly. I'm going to have to make a lot of video and intro stuff. Silver's super excited about it. And we're all going to be required to be watching it. So look forward to that. We're going to be reformatting things. Stuff is going to look a little bit better, a little bit different as moving forward. But if you're psyched for Rings of Power and our commentary, look forward to season 2 as it's coming forward. And I'm probably going to do a massive compilation of all of our discussions of every episode. Just put it in one like 10-hour video or whatever. Or however long it's going to be.
Can't get enough of us.
Can't get enough of us. Anyway, I appreciate everybody for coming along and hanging out with us this fine night for episode 29. Jason, something to leave us with?
Whatever your fandom, do what you like. Seriously. If somebody doesn't like it, hey, it's not on you to convince them. If you enjoy something, revel in it. Have fun.
That's what it means to be a nerd. Ross?
Yeah.
God, so excited. I mean, what can I say for a new season of Rings of Power? So excited to see how
we drug you into Rings of Power
characters.
kicking and screaming, and you were miserable the whole time. And I loved it. It was my favorite part, is you being in it.
Listen, I know you're mad at me right now for that picture I sent you this week, but you know, you don't got to take it on me personally like this. I just
it'll get
point
worse.
that out.
I actually explicitly wrote Amazon, please release a 3-episode premiere for Ross.
I gotta say, misery loves company, so I was miserable, so you should have been too.
I'm excited. What can I say? We'll be miserable together.
Yeah, we'll be there together. The only way I could boost my ego is to push people down. That's how I elevate myself. I have to have people around me to just push down back in there. Yeah, push them back into the pool.
And
bully the
I am
kids.
in the dirt.
Silver's in the dirt. Silver, something to leave us with? Any anime?
Go watch a good movie.
Watch a good movie.
Go watch something you like.
You know,
watch something that makes you happy. Go find a good show.
You know, that's a good suggestion. There are a few content creators that have said that if you're watching a show that you hate solely for the fact of reviews or for whatever reason, try and do palate cleansers by going and then watching something you really like in the meantime. So it's like...
Yeah, that's what I did after every episode of Rings of Power.
Yeah, essentially. Anything you're going to plan on watching this week, Silver? This coming week?
Great question.
Some anime.
Nothing planned.
Uh-huh.
Maybe some more Faraway Paladin. I'm only like 3 or 4 episodes in.
Oh,
okay. So maybe that. And that one with the confusing name about the girl who goes into her novel or whatever.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I don't remember what it's called.
The Duke something. That's pretty good. You were picking very girly options. It's like you're a female.
Ew. No, that's okay.
Disgusting.
Oh no, I've been discovered.
Oh no.
Quick, cheese it.
Quick, cheese it.
I
Let's
am
get
no
out of here.
man.
Well, thanks everybody for coming along. We need to get out of here. Do our thing. Yada, yada, yada. Have a good time. Goodbye.
Bye.
If you like the show, follow Rhett, Jason, Ross, and Silver, the world's most lethally stupid internet personalities, on Twitter at DGPodcast or on Instagram at DistractedGamers. If you liked or hated what you heard here today, you can email them at thedistractedgamers@gmail.com and share your feelings. Not that Jason would care, since he hasn't any, of course.
Oh my God, it's so juicy!